Hey, welcome everyone to the Sharpe Show. It is 7 p.m. on the East Coast, and it's Monday, which means it's the AMA. It's Ask Me Anything. It's what I love, but you know that before I start these, I always try to throw some kind of something into the pot to get us talking. And it's something that I've been thinking about for a long time, been talking about literally for years. And I just happened to see in my feed a segment from Rising. That's from The Hill. And they talked, it's about a week ago, about the issues that I've been talking about when it comes to the wealth gap and why the wealth gap is so wide and why it keeps going. And she's going to bring up something that Crystal's going to bring up something that I talked about before, and they're both going to agree on this. And it's not to do with left or right. It's actually with the real estate market and the Fed, which they're not going to mention because they can't. I'll cover that part, but they're going to cover other parts. Before I start, guys, like, comment, share. Do me a favor. It does matter. Get those algorithms going. Like this, comment, share, all good. Appreciate all of those things. Let me show you a little bit of what I am talking about here. This is, if I get it right here, this is the beginning of it. I think you will enjoy.
Friends, I've got a question for you this morning. What do you think about this house? It's a modest ranch built in 1948 in the Maryland suburbs of D.C. 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, about 1,800 square feet. Needless to say, seen better days. Nothing's been updated.
Little beat up.
Bathroom, still the original from the 40s. The realtor's description says, in part, this is an estate home in need of some serious love, being sold strictly as is. Please do not go out on the deck. It is not safe. So this dilapidated, modest house was listed for what to me already seemed like a hefty sum of $275,000. But improbably, it sparked an absolute feeding frenzy.
This is the crazy part.
88 offers later.
88 people put in offers on this house that is sold as is, meaning take it. It is a disaster. It needs a lot of work, and we're not fixing a thing. Don't bother asking us to fix anything. We're not gonna. So please just shut up and buy it. That's what it says. They got 8 offers and
76 of which were all in cash.
76 in cash. No loan. Here's a check. That's how many offers they got on this. Why?
The house sold for nearly $500,000.
Yep.
It went for $460K. That's 70% higher than the original list price. All to be the proud owner of a suburban property that is currently dangerous and unlivable. The winning bidder was
literally dangerous and unlivable. Why would someone buy this, right? Why would you pay $200,000 more than what they're asking for it? And it's unlivable.
Not actually the highest offer, but they were totally in cash and they had all the paperwork ready to go.
They were ready to go.
This type of home in a suburban area, it should reasonably be a kind of a starter home, maybe for a young couple with the energy to fix it up. But what young couple has $500,000 in cash just lying around? That is insane. Now, this particular home might be a bit of an outlier, but there is no denying the fact that the housing market has been blazing hot, especially for the upper middle class. Now, the media has covered part of that story. Affluent professionals during coronavirus, they 100%. Started prioritizing some different things. They wanted a home.
Well, what I think you find is this part is accurate, right? There's a part of this that is a little bit different than what we're going to talk about. And the part of it is there are a lot of people who are affluent white-collar workers who realize that they don't have to work in the office anymore. Many of them are my clients. So I've met many of them. I speak to many of them. They don't think they have to work in the office anymore. And the larger organizations don't want to spend all that money for commercial real estate anymore if they don't have to. If they can get the same amount or more work out of someone from home, the company would rather you stay home. Why pay for the commercial real estate? Why have to reimburse you for travel? Why have to pay a high salary if you don't have to live in New York City anymore? Right? Win for the company. Not just that, though. Now you've got someone who used to look at their second home, and people who are wealthy often have a second home, or not wealthy, their suburban home, they would somehow commute into a city as a place to just have fun, not to work. But now you got to split it up. Now you have to have a place where part of it's work and part of it's play. When you have that, you need a new house, or you're gonna, whatever the case may be, a whole different way of buying houses and now living further away to have a better lifestyle and not having to live so close to a city. All of that is true, and that is specific to the COVID lockdowns, right? That part's specific to COVID lockdowns, but the other part happened in 2008 and before.
Office space, more outdoor areas. With remote work, of course, proximity to the office became less critical. At the same time, these affluent workers, they fared really well during the pandemic. They cut back on expenses and availed themselves of pandemic-era programs, 100%. But they were able to stay in their lucrative jobs, unlike the working class that was, of course, screwed over in basically every imaginable.
And if you remember, I had a plan for this. I talked about, and again, this is from last year, last May, now 13 months ago, when I brought up the idea of how we can keep people in their homes at their jobs without having to worry about foreclosure or missing mortgage payments, and still letting the banks get their cash without having to bail out everybody else. Remember, I called it the 3.5 program. I talked about that. That would have ended this. I knew this was going to happen. I've spoken about it. I wanted to end this.
But now we are learning that the housing boom and possible bubble is being driven not only, or maybe not even primarily, by the PMC wanting more gardening space. Permanent capital is buying up homes at astonishing rates.
What's permanent capital mean? Though some of you know what that means, obviously, but some of you don't. Permanent capital means companies that just make money, like private equity firms and holding companies and hedge funds, and of course, pension funds and funds of funds and things like that. Not people who just, I want to buy a house, but people who just buy and sell things and make money on transactions and hold things and sell them, that type of thing.
Take a look at this new report from the Wall Street Journal. If you sell a house these days, the buyer might be a pension fund.
A pension
Wall Street
fund.
Journal weirdly focused their headline on pension funds because I guess they're associated with workers. But the truth is, it's all sorts of rich people and their financial institutions that are buying up American communities.
If those of you have been paying attention to me, I've said this for 3 years already, 4 years ago already. I was saying one of the reasons why the country is moving left is because of urbanization. One of the reasons why the wealth gap is going so high is because people are buying, the wealthy are buying up all the assets. What did I say was going to happen last year? What she just said. I told you that the wealthy already knew the crash was coming. They saw the lockdowns coming, and their financial advisors told them this and said, hey, it's going to get bad. Get liquid. And they did. And how does a wealthy person get liquid? They have a bunch of money in the bank? No. They either start a hedge fund, start a private equity fund, create a holding company, or already have one. The odds are they already have one. They don't already have one, then they know people who do, and they'll put their money in with them. So now a private equity company or a holding company or a hedge fund will somehow grab all their cash, and now that entity begins buying. So the individual doesn't, right? I'm not buying them. I'm not buying anything. I'm putting my money into this company, and the company goes ahead and buys things. And that hedge fund or that private equity company might create another, holding company, so-and-so real estate company, which is, owned by some massive hedge fund or by some private equity firm, or whatever the case may be, some entity. And then they start buying up a bunch of homes. Well, the problem, of course, becomes because the other guys, the regular people like you and I, we didn't, they didn't tell us that the crash was coming. Some of us knew, but they didn't tell us the crash was coming. So we couldn't get liquid. So now all of a sudden we have to sell our assets to survive, or worse, we're underwater in our home, or there are over 2 million Americans who are behind on their mortgages. Over 2 million. Hedge funds licking his chops going, yeah, can't wait to grab that. Yeah, can't wait to pick up all those homes for dirt cheap from the bank or from those people just trying to sell just so they can become renters. So why would they buy all these? So they can fix them up and rent them. Yeah. So now you have to sell your house because you can't afford it. So you move to a different city for a job and rent with a person who was in that house or that apartment. Well, that just got bought by somebody, so they have a new landlord, and that person swaps and goes to your house. And what happens is both of you lost ownership. Who gained ownership? A large company, a large entity gained ownership. That is the number one reason. There are many reasons. The number one reason why the wealth gap is growing is because of these constant problems right here. But why are they happening? Why is this happening, Larry? Because the government asked these companies to get involved to purchase real estate to save the economy in 2008. That didn't happen before. Yeah, the government said, why don't you do this? And then bailed out banks. Well, the banks are the ones who are supporting the hedge funds, who are supporting the pension funds. They supported them. Well, so you bail them out. So the person who's actually losing their mortgage does not get bailed out. But the big company who buys all the mortgages and it collapses, they get bailed out. I'm not joking. All those mortgages and all those in 2008, they were all bundled up. Those are all people like this who bought these mortgages, bundled them up, put them in the market. They were garbage. They collapsed. They got bailed out. How about the person who had the house? They didn't. They didn't. That's going to happen again. That happens every time because the government says do so. But why would they even do it in the first place? Larry, why weren't you do this in the 70s and 80s? They were to a certain extent, but nowhere near as much as they are now. Why? Because the Fed keeps the rates so low. Why would you save any money? And you've heard me say this 1,000 times. When I was a kid, we actually saved money. You don't save money now. You're an idiot to save money. Everyone's talking about putting into something else. Invest in this, invest in that, invest in this. What's the easiest thing to invest in? Real estate. People do. And this is what happens.
The report quotes a real estate consultant who estimates that 1 in 5 houses in the U.S. is sold to someone who never moves in. That same analyst told the Wall Street Journal, you now have permanent capital competing with a young couple trying to buy a house. That's going to make U.S. housing permanently more expensive.
How are you going to compete with that? How are you going to compete with this? How are you going to, in any way, shape, or form, compete with some big hedge funds to buy the house you want? You're not. They're getting it because they can drop tons of money and they buy so many of them. If they buy large tracts, I don't know if you've seen it, they trash them all, build up massive rental facilities, and then rent them all out. And now your landlord is not Bob or Jane. Your landlord is some company that doesn't give a damn about you because they're going to turn this thing in a year or two and just get rid of it.
Private equity giants, hedge funds, and other economic royalists are buying up houses, in some cases, entire neighborhoods. And then they're either getting directly into the landlord business or they're flipping them to entities that will rent the suburban American dream to you. As a result, home prices have jumped 16% nationwide in a single year. In the Northeast and the West, the increase has been even wilder, with prices jumping 21% year over year.
21% in New York City. In New York, they're already expensive.
Does that sound to you like the type of healthy growth that's going to lead to vibrant and sustainable communities?
No.
Of course not.
No.
It's another disaster in the making. Best case scenario is that the prices just continue to go up indefinitely, which is great.
Wait a minute. The best case is they keep going up indefinitely? No. That's happened exactly never. So it's not going to happen.
If you already own a home, and great if you're a wealthy investor, but a disaster if you are anyone trying to buy a home for the first time.
Yep.
Not being able to buy a home is a disaster because it's basically the only remaining path to building any sort of stable wealth in an era of private.
Sad to say, she's right. It is so hard for us as Americans if you're not already wealthy, to stably grow wealth. It's hard. Not impossible. Don't get me wrong. It's not impossible. But it's really hard. It's more difficult than it's ever been. And the most common way people do it is through real estate. Now, can you do it through business? Of course you can. And many people do. But every 10 years is a crash. So 2008, business gets devastated. Now 2021, business is devastated. And they're always government created. And they're always created by the Fed and the government, always, every single time. These aren't like natural. No, this is government created. This is self-inflicted wound. Luckily, 2008, I got my ass handed to me. 2008, I got devastated. I didn't feel it in 2009, and it was over for me by 2010. I mean, I spent 2 years trying to fix my business. I got completely crushed. This time, not as bad. I was ready for it this time. I wasn't ready for it before. What if you're not? What if you're trying to grow a small business? You're devastated now, and you don't even know when it's going to come. Even worse. So your only option is buy a home. Well, now you can't. We can't. I'm exaggerating. Now it's harder than it should be. And it's because of the Fed and the federal government trying to bail banks out. These two things are the reason why the average American is having trouble buying a home. She won't say that, but that's true.
401ks and COBRA. Instead, you'll be doomed to have some private equity goon as your landlord, applying their Harvard education and come up with new ways to squeeze every penny they possibly can out of you.
Sadly,
they get to build and build and build their wealth, and you never do. Testimonials from the families already living this nightmare are predictably horrible. Distant corporate landlords who do nothing as porches collapse, pipes burst, and mildew grows. Tenants with no recourse and no options who are stuck in hazardous homes. the slumlord of yore.
Now, you might say to yourself, well, wait a minute, Larry, why don't they just sue? Wait a minute, Larry, why don't they just sue? And sometimes they do. But I'm going to ask you a question. You're a regular, everyday person who is unsure how this works, don't know exactly what to do. You're trying to find maybe a lawyer or see what you can do to get some cash. You're up against literally $1 billion giant. That's how much money might be in that fund. For sure, tens of millions is in that fund. For sure. At probably hundreds of millions, maybe even $1 billion. Maybe a couple $1 billion is in that fund. What odds do you have of beating them in court? What odds do you have even getting to court? What a miserable life you have, even if you do sue them. It'll take 6 months before you get the thing in court if you're lucky, maybe a year. So you have to suffer with you and your family for 6 months to a year. By that time, your lease is up and they throw you out. Now sue them again. It becomes impossible. And this is what she's talking about. Nightmares. When massive companies own, and not even a company, that's the worst part. In most cases, it's not even really a company. It's just a bunch of people who have cash and their goal is only one thing: suck you dry, get their boys cash. They're not trying to build anything up. They're not trying to build, a community. They don't care about that. They trash community, build cheap housing, get the rents, and then flip them. Or worse, if they do it again like last time, bundle all of these up into some type of entity, into some type of share that they can sell to somebody else. Something they can sell to somebody else, some derivative, or they make something like that so you can sell to someone else. And then forget about it. Gone.
Placed with some of America's wealthiest institutions, but with the end result exactly the same. So that's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario, it's another dangerous speculative bubble. Sure,
bingo.
Market's hot right now, so everyone's buying.
Okay, that's the worst case. That's the most probable case. What she's talking about now is the most probable case, as I just talked about. They're going to start speculating. They're going to start putting these things into some type of vehicle to move it forward on the market somehow. And then boom, 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 gone.
Buying with all cash offers, gobbling up whatever they possibly can.
Yep.
But at some point, the music stops. The gains reverse, even if only by a little bit. And all the big players who bought in big rush for the exits to try to avoid being the ones left holding the bag.
2008, 2009. This is exactly what happened. It's what I've been talking about for 10 years, now 12 years, but mostly for the last 3 or 4 since I've been running for governor. I've been talking about this, and I'm hoping someone's finally listening. Maybe they watched the show.
They dumped their inventory back into the market, dropping prices. Ordinary homeowners who took out giant mortgages to desperately grasp for that American dream watched their home prices plummet, leaving them upside down and totally screwed.
Yes, let me keep going. Dustin is bringing up the idea of them being too big to fail. Dustin, you're right. The banks don't get screwed on this, right? What they do is they do all the speculation, they fail, and then what happens is it's corporate socialism. That's what it is. It's corporate welfare. They go out of their way to put all their money into these things. They lose a bunch of money, and then they go, we're a bank. We can't afford to be, you have to save us. And then we save them. But the individual person who just has a house, or maybe the luckiest 2, loses all their properties. They become renters. Yes, that happened before. It's on its way to happening right now. That's the problem. And the funny thing is, it's also large corporations. Many of you don't know, but a lot of these companies who've done so much money, who've done so well, is because finance is so lucrative. Finance is the most lucrative thing. Finance is way bigger than it should be in our country. There's absolutely a place for finance in every economy. Of course there is. I'm not against finance at all. I'm not. I'm against how big and powerful it is in our country. It's too big. It shouldn't be as big as it is. What I mean by that? Because money is so cheap, because the Fed keeps the rates artificially low. It's been doing this since 2000s? Since Glass-Steagall. Just been dropping them, right? The biggest part is after we went off of silver in 71, everything started getting bad. And now this gets even worse. Now it's down to almost nothing. What's the rate now? It's under 1%, right? So why wouldn't you get into finance? It's free money. It's literally free money. So just take it and spend. So what happens is you actually have companies like, is it GMC? I'm trying to remember. General Electric. Sorry, it was General Electric. This is before 2010 crash, 2008 crash. General Electric made more money in financing than it made in putting out product. Yeah. Do your homework if you think I'm making that up. Yeah. They made more money in financing than they made in product. They became a bank, basically, because it was cheap. They took all the money they got and they started loaning it. So they just started loaning. They become their own finance company. Have you noticed if you ever go buy a car now, if you bought a car years ago, right? I'm old enough to remember this. Some of you may be old enough to remember this. You'd have to go to the bank and get an auto loan. That was a thing. You'd get a car loan from a bank. That was the thing you would do. You go there, you give them a loan, you come, show the paperwork, but boom. And then they would pay the car dealer 100%. And then you would owe the bank money for your car. That was a normal thing. Not anymore. Every big car manufacturer is their own bank. You go to buy a Honda, there's Honda Finance Corp. A Ford, it's Ford Finance Corp. They're their own bank. Why? Because it's so cheap to do. So they all actually are their own banks. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, GM, was it General Electric? I think it was one of those companies, was literally doing mortgages. Because why not? It's free money. Yes, it is. That's how bad it's been. And it's just too much. And this is all because the Fed keeps the interest rates far too low. It makes it easy for them to all become banks. A lot of money, they become banks. They're taking the money we're giving them now, and they're buying back stock, raising stock prices, then borrowing against that to become banks. They're becoming banks again.
I'll give you one guess as to whether it will be the big guys or the homeowners who will get bailed out. As one sociologist at the London School of Economics put it, the story of housing in 21st century America. Financialization leads to crisis, which fuels more financialization, which leads to more crisis, which fuels even more financialization.
Yes. But one more thing that she doesn't bring up. Financialization encouraged and supported by the government. Federal government, by the way. This is not a state issue. This is a federal government. Encouraged and supported by the federal government. She kind of forgot that one. So Brian brings up GMAC did mortgages. Thank you, Brian. Yes, I remember it was one of those companies that did mortgages. Why are they doing mortgages? Yeah, because it's easy and cheap to do mortgages. That's why. That's it, because it's easy and cheap. The government encourages you to do it. So become a bank. Way cheaper. Don't build anything, just do finance.
New crisis, it's just an opportunity for the economic royalists to come in and gobble up even more of the pie.
Yes.
The people who manage to hold on to their nice homes in good communities become even more zealous about protecting their precarious privileges.
Of course, because they don't have enough. Now you're increasing NIMBY, right? Not in my backyard, right? You're increasing the NIMBYs of the world. Well, I got this thing. I don't want to give it up. Yeah, I love poor people and stuff, but not in my house. You start getting that, of course.
They or their kids fall into the permanent grind of the renter class. It's the American dream brought to you by BlackRock. And Sagar, this story is pretty shocking. And also I want to give a lot of credit here to David Dayen and to us, because this is something we've been tracking
from the very beginning.
For over a year now. Basically.
From the beginning is over a year. From the beginning, over a year. You're late. I've been on this way before you. You're late, but thank you. I'm glad you came.
The last crisis was that the federal government pushed a lot of these entities to get in the business of buying up distressed homes. That turned them into the landlord business. And so every time there's a crisis, even when these financial institutions are the ones that create the crisis, they also stand to be the ones who ultimately benefit, and around we go.
Yeah, and as you know.
Now, the worst part I want to bring up here is, the government was trying to help with this. I'm not joking. They were like, how are we going to help these people who are in trouble? Let's encourage these banks to buy their property so they don't lose all their money. So they did lose all their money and their house, and they became renters. And then the banks wrapped it up and destroyed everything, and then this happened. So yeah, this didn't work well at all. Let me grab some of your questions and comments. I just thought you guys would enjoy that. I appreciate that. So yes. Hold on. Jimmy, received my Sharpe coffee mug in the mail today. Thank you. I appreciate that, Jimmy. I do. Thank you so much. Yes. Shamrock, you are correct. Please like, comment, and share. Absolutely. Pete, of course, 28 trillion. It has crossed 28 mark, and you have been very, very adamant on letting us know that. It absolutely has. Yes. Dan says probably a house flipper will make a fortune with the right amount of upgrades. It really depends upon, right? If you do that, and don't get me wrong, Dan, this is a time also for house flippers. It is. But if you're going to do that, my opinion on this. Now, if you're a house flipper, good luck. I hope you make $1 bazillion. Here's my opinion on this. I wouldn't try that now. I would be house flipping after this. Like, I'd be house flipping in between. I don't know if I'd want to be house flipping now. Unless you're already good at it. Like, if you've already done it, you know how it works, you're probably already flipping. You don't need me to talk about that. You're already flipping. You've been flipping for a while. But if you're new, I'm not sure this is the time that I would do it if I were you. Matt says Gates is the largest private landowner in the U.S. Is that true? Huh. It's believable. Believable. Sean Green says, hey, Larry, you still scared to debate Shapiro? Lol, you had people big mad for an episode. People were mad at me. They were, absolutely. So he hasn't reached out. So perhaps he never saw it. Dustin says it's corporate welfare. 100% you're right. Yes, this is the problem. We're dealing with corporate welfare, right? That we need to end. It's not the right answer. People are upset at me sometimes. Larry, you want the businesses, to buy ad space or naming rights. You're giving the corporations a benefit. And I'm like, no, they're paying for it. And then we're getting from it, right? Many people say, I wish corporations paid more taxes. Me too. Many of them, the way they scam, they don't pay anywhere near by percentage as much as we pay. That's a fact. Many of them don't because of the way they move their money around. They're not paying. Well, we can simplify the tax code. Virtually impossible. I mean, could be done, but it's over time. We'd have to have libertarians in every state, libertarians, a larger presence within the federal government. A lot more libertarians to be in power for us to change the tax code. I think we should absolutely. I'm being realistic now, though. So what could you do now? Get them to pay for the stuff we want them to pay for, but voluntarily. I know, libertarian, crazy, right? Do stuff voluntarily. Give them something that has value so they pay for what they pay for voluntarily. Say, hey, is this a great thing? It is. Pay for our stuff then. I think that's much better than corporate welfare, Dustin. I completely agree. Yes. So, dang, Larry, please don't make me a rentist theft commie. Well, the sad part is, don't you understand why people would say that? I'm not saying I agree. I'm saying think of the emotion behind what's happening, what's been happening for 20 years. Can't you see how people could feel betrayed by their government, by their institutions to believe that rent is theft? Again, I'm not saying I believe it. I don't believe it. But the point is, I understand where they come from. I get their frustration. Their own systems are destroying them. Yeah, absolutely. Roro says, government is full of criminals that change the financial law according to what benefits them. Yes. The best one I can give you, and some of you know this story, but this is a great one. It's New York State, of course, because when it comes to corruption, we are awesome. Guy named Losky. Losky. He runs our financial department here in New York State years ago. And we have to figure out how do we deal with Bitcoin. So Losky says, you know what I'll do? I'll create a bit license. That's what I'll do. So he and his team get together and they create this very expensive, very convoluted way of you becoming a financial institution and getting a bit license so you can, do your Bitcoin business here in New York State. Then he quits and becomes a consultant. I'm not joking. Becoming a consultant to get people to go through and get a bit license. So he created a maze that only he knew and then left to become a Sherpa to take you through that maze, and you pay him 6 figures to do so. Brilliant. I mean, totally legal and totally unethical. Legal and unethical. In fact, I would go legal and immoral, both. And he's making a killing now. Totally fine. That's, you're the states trying to do corruption? Watch and learn. That's how you do corruption. Legally. Just amazing. But yeah, thank you. Matt says, thank God the government's here to help us. Yay. Absolutely. Thank God. Yes, absolutely. I don't know if I'm saying it right. Is it Canutatious or is it Nutatious? I don't know. Is it Canute or is it Nutatious? Nutatious, forgive me if you see the Rising Hill segment on the end of libertarianism. I didn't. Now I have to watch that. See, I have to watch that now. Thank you. Absolutely. Dustin, too big to fail? Yes. Since our 2008 crash, nothing has actually been done to change how big the banks are. In fact, they're bigger, right? We'll pass laws that'll stop them from all these things. No, you won't. It didn't work when you tried stopping them before, and it won't work again. You really want to make it work? End the Fed. That's the answer. End the Fed. And we can't end the Fed right now. Why? Not because we physically can't, but because too many Americans think the Fed's the only thing saving us. The Fed is our best chance. They don't understand how bad the Fed actually is. They just don't understand it. So we have to audit the Fed. Let's audit the Fed first. Then maybe there'll be some, I hope, I mean, because of so many people desperately trying to make it in the press world, someone will want to dig in deep and come up with a story that will show people how bad the Fed is. That's really my hope. Maybe, I don't know, CNN will do a special on it, or 60 Minutes will go down the rabbit hole or something like that. That is my hope. And then people will go, why the hell do we have one of these again? Yeah. So they are too big to fail. I think the only answer is first step is audit the Fed, and then you end the Fed. You have a plan, and you can't. We shouldn't. I shouldn't say can't. Can't's the wrong word. Let me adjust. We probably shouldn't just end the Fed tomorrow. There'll have to be a plan. Probably, I'm going to guess a 3-year plan is my guess on that, but I don't know what it is. But there's definitely a year plan on how do we deal with money and loans and everything, right? How do we deal with everything when we've been built on this? And it's all we know for over 100 years. So almost no one's alive who's lived without a Fed, without a central bank. So we have to actually figure out how to make that happen and how does that affect daily lives. So yes. So Andrew says you can go through a lawyer who deals with real estate to sell your house. You can go through, was that for me? Oh, I'm not sure what that was for, Andrew. I'm not sure. Yes. This will just force people to rent. Dustin, yes, that's the plan. Yes, that's the plan, right? These large institutions would like most Americans, the vast majority, to be permanent renters, right? Because that's guaranteed money coming in every year, which is basically they will take that as a debt. Why does that matter? They want to buy debt because then they can sell debt and trade debt. That's the reason why. Why would they want to buy debt? I don't get it. So you can sell and trade debt, right? So how would it work? So as you don't get it, say I buy up, sake of argument, 100 mortgages, and I buy 100 mortgages, and now I own the debt. How do I buy the debt? The bank has a mortgage, and say, Dustin, you owe them, I'm making this up, you owe them $100,000, and over the course of the 30 years, you're going to want to pay them $300,000, right? Because, you pay a whole lot if you have a 30-year mortgage, right? So you owe them 100, but you want to pay 300, the bank 300 total over the course of your 30 years. So I say, bank, I'll take it off your hands for 200. The bank goes, 200 now? Yeah, I'll give you 200 now. Give me the debt. And now you got to pay him instead. You got to pay me instead, Dustin, right? So I give the bank 200 grand. They're like, great, thanks. I got my money back. I'm good. I now own your debt. So now every month you're paying me. Well, what can I do? Well, I can now sell or trade that debt too, and I make cash. And we sell and trade your debt. And all that matters is you keep paying. Well, the problem is people eventually are not going to be able to pay. When they can't pay, I don't want to sell a debt anymore. And who's stuck with the debt now? Well, maybe I'm stuck with the debt. Uh-oh. It's a problem. Because that money that I took to buy from the bank, the debt from the bank, I might have borrowed that money. I know it gets convoluted, right? I might have borrowed that money to buy your debt. So I bought your debt and you're paying me money, but I also have to pay back that debt. So I'm going to try to sell or flip that debt so that I can pay back this guy and put some money in my pocket, and the other does the same thing. And that keeps going and going and going. And with one mortgage, it doesn't make any sense. What about when I wrap up 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 mortgages? Now it's big dollars. Now it's worth gambling. And that's what's happening. So the more people who are just renting and paying their money to me so that I can play with in the market, the better. And that's the goal, right? And the government encouraged this. They were like, yeah, go buy these things. Yeah, go do all these things. Oh, the rest were the subprime loans. Because the government cares about poor people, which happen to be more Black and Hispanics, more heavily Black than Hispanics. That happen to be in that regard. So they said, well, just give these people loans. We'll just back them. Well, they took those, bought the debt, and then moved it all around. Well, you've got loans that are bad loans. So eventually they're going to collapse, and I'm going to be caught. Well, now I'm a bank, and I bought all this debt. And that's how they get bailed out. Some of you may not. I know some of you get this. Some of you don't get this. I'm sorry. For those of you who get this already, I apologize if I'm over-explaining. But for those of you who don't get this, so I'm a big bank, and I buy literally 1 million mortgages, and they start to collapse. Well, I had to borrow that money to buy those mortgages. Well, the mortgages are all collapsing. How am I going to pay that money back? I'm a big bank. I'm too big to fail. You're going to bail me out, government. Now, when I get that money, what do? Do I give it to you? No, I give it to the guy I owe. That's what I do. You don't get that money. So you still lose your house. If it's a mortgage. And if it's a rent, rent's awesome. Rent's amazing. You got to keep paying me. So anyway, I wrapped it all around. It's a bunch of stuff going on. I apologize if that got too convoluted. But yes. All right. Brian says in the mid-70s, savings accounts drew about 14% interest. Yes, good reason to save. They draw 1/4. No reason to save. Thank you, Brian. Yes. You could save money. Now, I'm not saying you need to have interest rate of 14%. I'm not saying that. But 1/4%? Come on. It doesn't even match inflation. I don't even know anymore. You might actually be better off just putting your money under your pillow, right? It's the same thing. I'll just keep it in cash in my pocket. It's better than a bank. So it might be. So yes. Time to return to polygamy and multi-generational dwelling. It's funny you say that, but that's kind of happening. If you can't afford to have a good life on your own, or even just with two people, you find lots of people moving in together, right? Children moving in with their parents because they can't afford it on their own, or tired of having all these roommates, or roommates who all mix and match and become multiple lovers. I'm sure you've heard stories about that. So that becomes polygamy, or not polygamy. It becomes polyamory. It becomes that by default. That's happening too. And then elderly people who no longer can survive on their own, they want to move back in with their successful children, or the children bring the parents in because they're now retired. I think you are seeing that happen, my friend. I think you're absolutely right. Yes. So you would have thought they would have fixed this after the first housing crisis, 2008, 2009. You would think so, Justin, but of course not, because why would they? Most Americans still don't know. These guys are acting like we just found out. Look, we talked about it for a whole year. I've been talking about it for 12, right? Because I watched my ass get kicked. I was there. I saw it happen in front of my eyes. So yeah, I watch it happen. But why would they change it? It's going to happen again. And there's no damage, right? There's no damage. To the elites. They're still good. So no. Sean says, this will definitely concern my city. We depend on real estate. So I'll definitely monitor this here in Cape Coral. Thank you. Yes. Was it Coral? Cape Coral? I'm going to say it wrong. Coral. Jimmy says, yep, it's all about pushing more corporatism. Yes. Right. And of course they'll say it's the death of capitalism. But this is really corporatism. This is corporate welfare. This is what happens when the government and corporations become one. And they basically are one. Sadly, banking, not even the corporations. It's really banking, right? It's finance more than anything. That's the biggest issue. So Johnny says, a question. I'm here in Minnesota and my house just got a mass text telling us it's curfew and we can't go outside. Really? I was about to go leave the opposite way, even of the protest area, to get food for my kid's grocery store, I guess, club. Should I go and risk the ticket, or just go without tonight? That's an odd question. That's an odd question. You see what's happening in Minnesota? If I were you, if you need to get food, I would go get food. I would hope that the cops are going to have a light hand. I would hope, thinking about what's going on in Minnesota right now, that trial, I would hope they'd have a light hand. Please do what you feel is best for yourself and your child. If it were me, I'm only saying what I would do if it were me. I would probably go get food. Maybe you order it. Can you do that? I don't know how you are financially. If you can handle the Seamless. I know Seamless charge you $80,000, but if you can afford Seamless, maybe this is a Grubhub call, email. So good luck either way, my friend. So. All right. Let's see here. Sorry about Bud I'm out smoking a stick because of nerves. Okay. Whatever. Good luck either way, my friend. I hope things go well. Yes. Dustin says, yeah, I agree. Finance is too lucrative to pass on. Might as well throw money into casino stock market. Agreed. Agreed. And the other problem we have is, right, some of our best and brightest, many of them are rushing into finance. Not that I don't want the best and brightest in finance. Of course I do. But I want the best and brightest in everything. And I think a lot of them are moving towards finance, or have been. I don't know if that's still true, but I think it has been in the past thing where they're all, because that's where the big cash is. I'd like our best and brightest to be moving all over the place. I'd like us to have a mix of people in everything. And I don't see a lot of that. So it is a problem. So anyway, thank you for that, Dustin. You guys have a lot of great comments. I appreciate it. Let me grab a couple more if I can. Financing for many corporations in the 90s kept some of them going. Yes, it was a phoenix among the ashes. That's very true. And one of them was General Electric. But yes, you're correct. And that's not the right answer, right? If you're falling apart, then you should repair yourself or fall apart. You shouldn't just go, oh, we're in trouble. Let's become a bank. That's not the best. That's not a long-term solution. If that makes any sense, Paula. It's a short-term solution, but it's not a long one. So yes. Tell people, I think are you talking to someone else? That one open borders let the homeless and immigrants stay in their home until they can find housing for them. Watch them mumble and stumble. I'm not sure where that's coming from, Ro. I'm sorry. I don't get that one. Matt says, I hope the government stops helping soon. The only thing to help us into a cage or an early grave. Yep. Absolutely. Nate says, capitalism is about profit and loss. When you bail out losers, there is no end to the cost. There's no end to the cost. Ah, gotcha. Yes. Okay. And I see what you're saying. Yeah. You just keep bailing them out. But but the issue here, Nate, is you don't bail out losers. You only bail out the big losers. That's the problem, right? That's the issue. If they bailed out everybody, at least it'd be fair. So if I couldn't pay my bills and they were like, you know what, Larry, you're in trouble. Let's bail you out too. At least it'd be fair. I mean, it would still be terrible. And we would still, our debt would be 56 trillion, but at least it'd be fair if that was true. But they only bail out the heavy hitters. So we get the best, we get the worst of socialism and the worst of capitalism. We get the worst of both instead of the best of both. Yes. So Joshua says, I rent from American Homes for Rent, one of the biggest buyers in these neighborhoods. It's a terrible downhill succubus on society. Ouch. And there's little we can do. I'm stuck in the scenario you mentioned. Yep. Owning a plumbing business, barely getting by, and unable to buy a home. You are not uncommon, Joshua. I wish we had a better system. This is not the right way of doing things. The system is about, the government talks about home ownership and the white picket fence and the 2 kids and the dog. They talk about that still from the 60s and 70s and 50s. They still talk about that stuff. But in reality, the system has been setting us up to be more and more renters. If you have a business, you have to rent your space. If you have a home, you have to rent your home. If you have furniture, now you rent your furniture, right? Now we rent everything. Everything isn't a monthly subscription. It's a renter's mindset, right? I want to watch TV or something. I got to pay a monthly fee. I rent everything. I don't own anything anymore. I lease my car now. I don't even own my car anymore. I just lease my car. Or I use Uber and I rent it for the couple of minutes that I use it. It's constantly that way again and again and again. It's not good for our culture. It just isn't. You're right. It's not good. So is that Grieg? Grieg says, Gates has been buying farmland. Most are speculating for renewable energy space. Oh, that's actually smart. I mean, it's smart. He's got the cash. He could do. It's not like he's gonna miss it. If he screws up, oh well, he'll be fine. He'll lose $1 billion. Whatever. That's for him. That's nothing. That's not bad. So yes. So, what are your thoughts on people stepping up prior to the debates? We got our guy on, and it was huge. I'm not sure what that means, Scott. I'm not sure what that means. What about stepping up prior to debates? We got our guy on. I don't know what that means. Help me out with that one. Unless it's not for me, but I think that's for me. So if JB is correct, then the 13th and 16th income tax amendments are not absolutes. And they aren't. To be forward, they aren't. I don't think any of the amendments are absolutes. It'd be nice if some of them were, but I don't think any of them are absolutes. I think we've shifted and adjusted in many ways, shapes, and forms. We've bent over all over the place. I think we have. And in certain cases, it's probably not a bad idea in certain cases. But we're very loose. It's, oh, this works for me now and I'm in power, then it's absolute. Oh, it doesn't work for me that I'm in power? Well, it's a living, breathing document. I think we do both. So yeah. All right. Let's see if I can keep going here. Wow, a lot of these cool ones. I like this. Wow. Problem with renting is, like you said, they buy into something with no interest in the property and raise rent year after year with no improvements and little maintenance. Yes, is that right? So they just, because we accept that we're going to pay higher rent every year, and often it's in the contract, but then they don't do any maintenance, no improvements, and don't care at all. In fact, try to get a phone call. You can't even get a phone call, right? They don't even respond to you at all. It's terrible. Yes. So the Fed equals the reason I moved to crypto. Watch out on crypto. I am getting worried about crypto, Dustin. I'm getting worried. Not that I'm against it. I own crypto. I think it's a great thing. I'm in. I'm just saying I'm worried. And I'm worried that it's going to get so bad and the government's going to get so worried that they outlaw it and make you a criminal for having it. And didn't India recently do that? I think India, right? If someone don't know this, so one nation just outlawed Bitcoin. I've forgotten. I think it's India. Just outlawed Bitcoin. If that works, that's the precedent. That works, they'll keep doing it. And you might go, well, so what? I have some Bitcoin. Don't forget, they put the guy, Ulbricht, the guy who started Silk Road. He went to jail for two life sentences plus 20 years, something like that. They put him away forever, and he was in his 20s. They'll lock us up too for that. So I'm just saying, be worried. I'm a little concerned. Again, I'm still there, but I'm a little concerned. So Jeff says, that's how you end up dead, digging deep into the Fed. I hope not. If I end up dead, Jeff, then that'll be the conspiracy. You can tell everybody. See, he's talking about the Fed. They got him. You write a book or something. So you could make a killing on my killing. There we go. So Amanda says, do you think the Sharpe murder trial is taking too long? I think it's going on for 12 days. Just make a damn verdict already and either charge or not charge him already. Well, they've already charged him. So no, you mean convict him or not convict him already? Yeah. So no, I don't think 12 days is long at all for a trial like this. I don't think it's long at all. I think it's about right on time. And I've consulted on several of these, and I don't think it's too long at all. I think they're trying to be sure, and I think that he will be convicted of something. I doubt he walks. They're very emotional. They're showing all the cool stuff. I doubt he walks. And the biggest thing, which some of you may or may not noticed, for the first time that I can remember, I mean, maybe it's happened before, but I don't remember it. Multiple cops testified against him, against Sharpe. That has not been a thing. Now there's cops going, no, that was too much force. You should. And I'm like, whoa, really? Cops saying that was too much force? So I don't think it's too long at all. In my view, Andrew, it's not long at all. I think it'll be over by next week is my assumption. It'll be over before next week, or by next week for sure. I think he'll be convicted of something. I don't see him walking. He'll be convicted of something. I don't know what that is, but they'll get him on something. And he'll probably spend time in jail. I think he will. That's my view. So, anytime a libertarian says, end the Fed, I also think Ron Paul gets a ring in his ear. That's good. He's like, oh, yes, exactly right. Yes. Yep. End the Fed and institute free banking. Look at that. Research the Jacksonian era of free banking. Check out the plethora of designs on various private bank notes of that time. Oh, that's an interesting way of doing things. Private bank notes. That's old school, Nate. Look at you going back to old school. All right. You know what? I will check it out. I will look at it. I will check it out. Absolutely. Yes. All right. Let's see if I can keep doing this here. Jericho says the Today Show this morning was praising how great the Fed was because they weren't likely to raise interest rates this year. I couldn't roll my eyes harder. Yeah, and some of you heard the story, but I'll say it again because it does matter for us to get this. some of you know that prior to the lockdowns, I spent a lot of time teaching. And one of the things I would do was I would teach leadership. And sometimes I would teach it to New York City government agencies. So I'm teaching one of the agencies, and I never talk about politics unless they bring it up and it's during a break. So it's during a break, and people are mulling around the classroom. And so you know who this was. These were mostly men, but women too, all educated, all credentialed, all of them educated, credentialed. They work for an agency of New York City. Youngest is probably 30, oldest is probably 60. So between 30 and 60, mostly men, probably 3 out of 4 men. Probably 3 out of 4 men, all educated, all credentialed, New York City. And one person was saying something just like this, Jericho. They were like, this is several years ago. It's probably 5-6 years ago. And one of the guys says, man, I'm so glad the Fed took care of us in 2009, really saved us. Something like that. And so they looked at me and I went, do you guys know that the Fed's just a private bank? It's basically a cartel system for banking cartel. It's private, not run by the government. Like, what? Like, yeah. No, they don't believe me. I said, you got your phones? Check it. And okay, this crazy Larry Sharpe guy. What? Like all of a sudden they know, you hear him just looking, they're like, what? Oh my God, he's right. I said, yeah. You know, it just magically makes money. No, it doesn't. They still didn't believe me. Yeah. It literally just magically makes money. It just makes money. It says there's money, and it puts ones and zeros in big banks' accounts and says there's money there now. Take it. That's what happens. Like, no, it isn't. I said, Google it. Check it out yourself. Check it out. And they did. There was over 20 people in that room. Not one of them knew that the Fed was not a private bank. That was a private bank. And none of them knew that the Fed just made magic money. None of them. We have a long way to go to educate our population before this isn't news, Jericho. Right now, people who are at home going, yeah, oh my God, the Fed, they were doing that. Yes, because they don't get what we get. It's almost like a secret. Maybe I will end up dead. That's it. Maybe I will end up dead. I'm going to blame you, Jeff. It's your fault. Blame you. Jeff did it. So yes. All right, let me keep going here. Andrew says, that was for you, Larry. One of my aunts had her lawyer sell her house and it was cheaper. Oh, I see. So you have a lawyer sell the house for you versus having a realtor sell your house. Oh, interesting. Okay. Good idea. I like that. Okay. I didn't know many lawyers can do that, but okay, great. So the Elastic Giraffe is on tonight. He says, artificially low interest rates fuel land speculation. Yes, and other types of speculation, but particularly land speculation, which cause housing shortages. When middle and upper class homeowners' private values go up, renters lose. Yes, yes, and yes, absolutely. So let's just let it go. Let's let the market do its thing. That might be better. Yes. CJ says, was watching a bird build a nest in a tree yesterday, not bound by laws or regulations preventing them from getting a home. Just doing something that comes naturally and felt envious. Really think that small moment is what tipped the scale and to me become libertarian. It may be a tad over dramatic, but that bird has freedom will likely never have. Oh, CJ, just no. That's actually very nice. I'm glad you wrote that. That's cool. I want to build a nest now. I'm gonna go build a house now. Who am I kidding? Not building a house, but it does feel cool. Maybe I'll build one on like a simulator or something. I'll go buy Bird Nest Simulator. I'm sure there's one somewhere. It's on Steam. It could probably cost me $6. I'll go do it. And I'll think about you, CJ. It's actually really cool. I don't think it's overdramatic at all. I think to be forward with you, and I'll walk down that road. Since you open up that road, I'm gonna walk down it, CJ. I think that so many people, humans from thousands of years ago, have looked to the sky and birds as being free. Our symbol is an eagle, right? Flying free. That's the whole goal. I think it's not dramatic. It's actually very natural. I think for many humans to look to birds and see what they're doing and go, I kind of want that freedom. I get it. So Donnie says, government misspending widens the wealth gap by both stealing more money from taxpayers and by not providing the quality service they're supposed to. It's even worse than that, Donnie. Because when they misspend and they steal more money and they don't provide quality services, what is our answer? Yeah, give them more money so they can misspend the money. The amount of people that tell me, and I get this on a weekly basis, either in person or through social media, somehow people say, or I read it, somehow people say, yeah, Larry, you libertarians, these things would work if you would just want to fund them, if you would just fund them. Now, there's two parts to find it out. One, they think funding is the answer. To your point, Donnie, if you're bad at spending, I give you more money. Now you're bad at spending more money. You were incompetent with this. Now you're incompetent with more. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, since when did we become in charge? We're not in charge. I wish we were. I wish we were in charge. We're not. So if you're mad at all these people doing bad spending, don't blame libertarians. Blame the parties that have been in charge. If you're in New York, it's Democrats. If you're in Oklahoma, it's Republicans. Blame them. Don't blame me. Don't blame us. But I hear it all the time. Your point's a very valid one, Donnie. I appreciate that. So there are no bailouts in the free market. Let me make a minor change in that. A minor, and I'm nitpicking here on purpose because I don't want to I don't want this to sound mean. That's why I'm nitpicking on purpose. There could be bailouts, but they'd be voluntary. There'd be a company that people believe in, and they would think the person just made a mistake, and they will want that company to survive, and they would bail the company out. But it will be voluntary. You would decide. You'd be like, you know what? That's a good company. They just screwed up. We need to get rid of that CEO, and they could fix it. The mission's good. I care about it. Guys, can we get together and bail this company out? I think there would be bailouts, but it'd be voluntary bailouts. It wouldn't be government bailouts. Because I do think there are people who are like, this organization has value. And I think you've seen it before. So I would say in the free market, there's no government bailouts. That I think is true. And I'm niching it on purpose. I mean, I'm niching. That's not what I mean. I'm sorry. I'm nitpicking on purpose because I do think we would. I think there'd be some companies that made mistakes that we would say, you know what? I want in. So not from the state. See? Thank you. Read my mind. I love that. Absolutely. Paula said Dodd-Frank was passed by Dodd-Frank. There we go. Then said congressmen who passed it hired themselves out as consultants that they left our office. Brilliant. Absolutely. Yes. Brilliant. This is the best way of being. See, I need to get into government just so I could make some rule so I can leave and become a consultant to make tons of money. The scam of the scam. Yes. I love that. Yes. All right, here. The rising is right. Everyone knows in capitalism, all the money goes to the top. Oh, in capitalism, money goes to the top. I'm not sure that's all true. I mean, if you look at how some nations have put how some nations have put capitalism into play, I don't think that's always true. I think it does happen, but I think in general, money goes to the top. Even if you look at socialist countries, if you look at dictatorships, as a general rule, money goes to the top. If you have a healthy democracy, and we don't have that, America does not have a healthy democracy. I think you really can, if you have a healthy democracy, that can, without question, put the right changes on capitalism. Without a healthy democracy, you can't. And there's a saying that, democracies don't war on each other. You probably heard that before. It's a common saying. It's absolutely garbage, not true. Imperial Japan was a democracy, a broken, weak democracy. Turkey is a broken, weak democracy. Nazi Germany was a democracy. People voted. It's a broken democracy. North Korea. Well, no, not really, but I mean, in theory it is. But I mean, actual practicing democracy. It's not a practicing democracy. But Japan, Imperial Japan was a practicing democracy. And that still happened. Broken, weak democracies, I think, is when you become a capitalistic and almost always fascist. That's not 100% rule, but it's a high percent rule that democracies turn into fascism when they become broken democracies. It's a common thing, not 100% rule. So I don't know. I mean, Kevin, I'd ask if you could find another way, I'm not sure I could find a better one. But I see where you're going. Sharpe, if you got a good argument, you should get it done in 3 minutes. Is that the rule? Is 3 minutes the rule? So if I go 3:01, it's not a good argument. I don't know where you got that from. I appreciate the brevity. Brevity is important. I would try to have one. I'm not sure why 3 minutes. 4.5. I'll teach you. Jimmy Larry, have you been catching up on the Sharpe? So what are your thoughts? As I said, I'm sorry, I read this later. Yes, I think he will be convicted of something. I think they're doing a very good job moving the emotional strings, and juries are not logical. I've been a jury consultant in the past. Juries are not logical at all. They are specifically they're very emotional. So I think they will. Crony capitalism, the only capitalism in the free market, is a myth. A pure free market, I think, is a myth. That's true. There is no such thing as a pure free market. There will always be players who are moving, influencing. There will always be some form of coercion in some way, shape, or form. I think a pure free market is a myth. I agree, but I think we want to get as close to a free market as we can. Right now, we're moving further and further away from that. And I guess, unless Kevin, I guess if your answer is I'll vote Republican or Democrat to fix this, I would ask you, one of the most democratic states in the union is New York. The Democrats run everything, and our crony capitalism is second to none. So Democrats aren't going to save you if that's your answer. Republicans aren't going to save you either. So is your answer revolution? I don't know what your answer is. I feel like if you want to move towards away from crony capitalism, you have to find groups and movements and people who are anti-crony capitalism. And I would ask you, what's the largest movement right now in America, political party, that's anti-crony capitalism? Libertarian Party. We're the one. Democrats are not, Republicans are not. Both of them are totally pro-crony capitalism. The Republicans are kind of only pro-capitalism when it comes to certain things, right? They're probably better in crony capitalism in certain ways, but other ways they're exactly the same as Democrats. I mean, the Halliburton to, Democrats don't often have Halliburton. That's Republicans, but Democrats have their thing too. I mean, it's nothing but crony capitalism. So I don't know where you want to go. Are you talking about violent revolution? Are you talking about changing everything? I don't know. I don't know where you're going is, I guess, what I'm saying. Regulatory capture is a thing. Yes, I talk about it often. I talk about it often. That's big business, creating regulations, usually supported by socialists. Socialists usually support heavy regulation on big businesses. That's a common thing, right? Many socialists I know are all about gotta regulate. And that creates regulatory capture. Again, I'm not sure where you're going with this. Let's see. Hold on. That's so why are 14 watching? I don't know, Kevin. Are you watching on one of the shows where 14 are watching? Oh, so you guys know. This is streamed on 8 different platforms. The lower platforms get less than 100 views. The higher platforms get a couple thousand views. Overall, this show gets somewhere between, depending upon the show, somewhere between 2,000 and 6,000 views total, depending upon the show. Some shows only around 2,000 total. Some get 6,000. If I get a good show, it'll get 10 or 20. When I get a really good show, it isn't that common. But your specific thing, Kevin, is probably under 100. You're on YouTube. YouTube is one of my lowest ones. In a good show, I'll get 200, 300, 400, 500 views. On a bad show, I'll get under 100. So that's probably why 14 are watching, because the live on each one of them is lower than the aggregate. And of course, many people aren't watching live, they watch after. So even if I get a couple thousand views for the live show, a couple days later, I'll want up another 1,000 or so on top of that. So that, I hope, answers your question at least. So, alrighty. Kevin, stop insulting people. You can insult me only. That's the only person you can insult is me. Please stop that. Do not insult other people. You can insult me as much as you like, and many people do. Do not insult others. That's not cool. Do not insult others. You can only insult me. That's all. All right. How do we get Cuomo out of office? That is a very good question. And I think the only way is a third party. I can't see another way. I don't think Democrats will primary him and he will win because he runs this state with an iron fist. Republicans will lie to themselves and say, this is the chance to win. They can't in this state. The statewide election is impossible. They'll never win. So that's not going to happen here. You got to find a third party. I hope that person's me. We will find out in this summer. I will see who's supporting me, how they're supporting me. I'll make a decision in the summer. But that's the only way. There is no other way besides that. Otherwise, he runs until he doesn't want to run anymore. And in New York State, we have no term limits, so he could run for 20 years. Yes, absolutely. So, obviously, says Larry, a report came out today that New York will lose more people this year than it did last year because of obscene cost of living and high taxes. What is Charlton Cuomo's solution? More taxes that the people that are stuck here will need to pay for the government's failure. Genius. Yes, yes, and yes. I've been telling you this for a while. I've been saying this to everybody all the time. Yes, New York State is a disaster. It has been a disaster for years, and it's just getting worse. Agreed. Yes. Is crypto a viable currency? Where can I actually spend it? You know, I got to tell you, most crypto, not all, but most crypto is not a viable currency yet. But you can spend it. Some are, and you can spend it if you want to. In many cases, cryptocurrency is not a viable currency because it isn't stable enough. Excuse me. But I do think that's changing. I think you are finding cryptocurrencies that are becoming more stable. As you find more and more of them become more stable, they become more viable currencies. My gut feeling, and this is only a gut feeling, please do whatever you want with this. My gut feeling is something like Litecoin or Ethereum or something like that is going to wind up being an actual currency. I think Bitcoin in people's minds is still too much of an investment, right? I think people think of it as an investment. I had a guy on who supports Tusk, TUSC, the Universal something coin. I've actually got what the S is. But so he may be right. He's the one who's, if you remember, I had him on last week. He was talking about using it to purchase firearms, right? It's a different type of cryptocurrency. So TUSC, Tusk, the Universal something coin. I forgot what the S is. He'd be mad at me. But please check that out. And that's probably that coin is meant to be a currency versus others. But I think you have to have one that is going to be there. Yes. Oh, Qatar loved Bitcoin. Thank you, Paula. Qatar did. There we go. Kate says, free Ross, 100%. If I were president, I would pardon him without question. Let him out. I don't know why the hell he's in jail. It seems crazy. Yes. B-Boy Customs says, watch out for how many of the crypto big players are now traditional banking institutions. The US will outlaw crypto, but they might tax oblivion. Good point, right? I guess which one comes first? Do the bankers figure out how to control and make money on it? Or does the government, or do they bail on it and let the government just outlaw it? I think it's a great question, right? The one advantage to being too big to fail is if the banks get, really involved in crypto, it's got to be real. I guess my other issue would be, though, right? What happens if America decides, the government decides, the Fed decides to issue its own coin and then do something like, we'll give the banks a 1-for-1 on whatever coins they use so they can start using the coin and then outlaw the rest. See, that's how they would get around it. The Fed would say, oh, you guys all have a bunch of whatever, Bitcoin or Litecoin or Ethereum or whatever is the Dogecoin, whatever is the cool coin of the day. You have a bunch of those. We're going to bring out the Americoin or whatever they call it, the Americoin, and we're going to give you, Y dollars for every one of your coins. So stop using them. They're now illegal because now they're competing currencies and they're illegal. That is the way I think they might get around it, by giving the banks the cash in their Americoin and then outlawing every other coin. That I could see happening, and giving you a grace period where you can buy their coin for whatever, a small grace period. And of course, banks will make transaction fees on all of those because banks love transaction fees. Absolutely. Yes. So, all right. Most analysis I have read say Sharpe will get 15 years. Wow, that much. Wow. There we go. Yes. Larry, when you become governor, she would address you as Gunnery Sergeant Sharpe. Sounds like better than what we have now, King Charlton Cuomo. Actually, I was never a gunnery sergeant. The highest rank I achieved was staff sergeant. So I guess staff sergeant shot would be fine. But yes, I did not achieve the rank of gunnery sergeant. That's E7. That, for those of you who don't know, the highest rank I ever got was E6. So maybe staff sergeant. I like sergeant. She's fine. Governor's good too. All good. Yes. Michael says, invest in silver bullion. The big players in the market that make batteries and technologies will not disclose they demand, they require. Silver is going to skyrocket when electric cars are commonplace. Well, there we go. Michael's giving us some cool info. I love it. There we go. The number one seniority cop in Minneapolis, who is the head of the homicide and was on the scene, completely threw Sharpe under the bus. That's my point, Jimmy. That is exactly my point, right? I think that didn't happen before. It didn't happen. Cops didn't turn on each other. By the way, guys, now that I got you, thank you for that, Jimmy. Please do me a favor, guys. Head on over, click that link that is in the description, that specific link, click that link and take the police accountability survey. It's from my sponsors, theadvocates.org. They love it. I love it. Please take that survey, finish it, and share it. It does matter. It makes them feel good, makes me feel good, and keeps this show going. So please take a few seconds, click that specific link in the description, head on over there and take that survey. Complete it about 5 minutes, finish it, and then share it online. Please do that. It helps me out tremendously. You say, Larry, I don't got time. I'm doing stuff. Okay. How about you have time to throw me some cash? Head over to patreon.com/sharpeway. That'll be $10, $25, and get your cool mug, just like Jimmy did. Exactly right. Take care of that too. Please make sure we take care of that. That would be amazing. If you have the cash, got some Biden bucks coming to do that. If not, all good. If you don't have the cash all the time, I know you have enough time to do this. Like, comment, share. You can hit that love like button, or comment, hey, I'm commenting, or share it. Let people know this is happening. All three of those are valuable to move this show forward. So please, either one you can do, either take the police accountability survey at theadvocates.org, or head over to Patreon, throw me $10, $25 a month, keep this going so I can keep doing what I'm doing now, or like, comment, and share this. It does matter. Thank you so much for those of you who are helping me out. I really appreciate it. So yes, let me keep going if I can. So let's see here. Fariza Kari's mom passed away. Yeah, she did I think a couple days ago. She did. I feel bad for him because he couldn't go see her because of COVID. So he couldn't bury her. So it does suck. I feel bad for the guy. His show wasn't that great recently, and neither was Summer Connich's, so I'm not really talking about it much. They didn't have great shows this weekend. But yeah, I do feel bad for him. Absolutely. Paula says, it feels like Alan Greenspan installed running the Fed, or at least still shapes it. I think his mindset is still there. Yes. And he's admitted mistakes. But I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Okay. Daniel says, I know we're all libertarians, but what do you think instead of a local force, have a national police force like France, standardized protocols and trainings? So you're saying the problem that I have with a national police force is, well, we have the FBI already, which is already just a surveillance state, but there's such a difference in policing. You know, and I learned this as I started going through this, coming up with policies last year to reform police. Urban policing is very different than rural policing. New York's policing is different than Georgia policing. It's just different. And I want people to be policed the way they want to be policed. So creating nationalized standards and protocols, my worry is you'll have a couple of areas that it fits perfectly and they're completely happy because that's exactly how they want to be policed. And then a bunch of places will be like, well, this sucks. This is not what I want. And I'd rather have people, police the way they want to be policed. The example I always give is that here in New York City, my police force is 40,000 strong. That's bigger than most towns. That's just my police force. How do you compare a police force of 40,000 strong to a police force where certain towns is like a cop and 2 deputies, and that's it, right? That's it. It's a very different way of looking at things. So that's why I'd be worried about that, right? I would rather have, now if you want to say maybe you have some bare minimums, I'd be okay with that, but I wouldn't want them to be law. I wouldn't mind the federal government coming out with guidelines that local police forces could look at and go, oh, this is how we should set up our police force. Here is what we should do. And then that might be something you would measure if the cops are ever in trouble, right? It wouldn't be required, but I think it's not a bad idea for, again, the government to be a central repository for information. Sure, right? I love that idea. Central repository, here are the guidelines that we think are appropriate for you and your police force, depending upon the size of your city or your town or your county. That's fine. Do that. And then juries and such, in case of cops in trouble, might measure it towards the federal guidelines. I mean, something like that might work, but I really don't want it to be national police force. I can't imagine that people in DC want to be policed the same way that people want to be policed in Boston. I could be wrong. I just don't see it. So there has been talk of a crypto tax on top of the capital gains tax where you have to pay. I'm sure that's the future. Yes, I'm sure it's the future. That bird mixed his labor with that branch, created private property. Look at you, Nate. Nicely done. Yes, he did. Or she. Or she. Doesn't matter. All birds are created equal. There we go. I like that. I'm being good. All birds are created equal. Absolutely. So, all right. See if I can. All right. Rachel says, there you have it. Birds have more property rights than we do. Not even kidding. Yeah. Yeah, the bird didn't have to get up in the morning and say, "Hey, Governor Cuomo, can I leave my nest? Is it okay if I go fly away and get worms for my babies and my eggs hatched?" Yeah, absolutely. Never do that. That's very funny. Yes. Remember when they told people Dodd-Frank was supposed to stop bailouts to protect consumers? I remember that. Yes, I remember that story they told us that did nothing. Yep, absolutely. It's very good. Joel says, politician, my program is so great, everyone supports this program. Okay, make it voluntarily funded. Yes, Joel, yes. And that was my point about bailouts. I think there would be bailouts. They'd just be voluntary. And I don't have a problem with that. If people get together and say, I care about this company, let's get together and bail it out. And you voluntarily say, I'm going to take my money and bail this company out. Good on you. Your money, spend it any way you like. And bailing out companies if you want to. Okay. Or buy electric car or whatever floats your boat. I love that. But see, the problem is, Joel, they don't understand the old adage, good ideas don't require force. They think good ideas require force. See, Joel, I'm going to show you how good it is. And if you don't want to see how good it is, I'm going to put you in jail. If you don't want to go to jail, I'm going to shoot you. That's how that works. So I'm with you, though, by the way. I'm with you. Even with the highest rates, says the Elastic Giraffe, our whole financial system is based on usury. That's true. Principles created out of thin air and lent into circulation, but the interest is not. The banks vacuum up society's wealth. That's been true for a while. I agree. Yes, I agree. And the larger that your finance industry is, I think the weaker your society winds up becoming, right? It shouldn't be that large. It really shouldn't be that large. Sam says, in socialism and communism, power and money go to the top. Yes. Yes. People blame capitalism, but the problem is cronyism. Well done, Sam. Yes, that is absolutely correct. The issue is what socialism and communism creates initially is oligarchy. That's what it initially creates. Very often that becomes dictatorship. But it always begins in the oligarchy, and then depends how long can the oligarchy survive, right? How stable is it? You know, how well has it worked? Are there institutions people respect? If not, eventually the oligarchy eats itself, and one person steps to the top. Stalin, as an example of that, right? Stalin, and one person steps to the top, and then they run everything, right? It becomes dictatorship. Mao, another good example of that. They began as oligarchies. And then eventually one steps to the top, either by, somehow pushing down the others or murdering them. That's also a common thing. Or murder. See Stalin, right? Or murders them. And then he or she comes to the top, usually a he. But sometimes she too, but usually a he. So yes. All right. Larry the Bull Sharpe, trial. I think it's a scientist. No. I'll pass. That's funny, but I have consulted on trials before. That's true. I have done that before. Yes. So Dustin says, "Hey, Larry, come stay in California for a while. We may rival New York in the crony scale. I don't know. We're really good. We are really good. Like, we're high. All I'm saying is Cato has ranked New York as the least free state. Is it now 3 years running now or something like that? I mean, multiple years. I mean, we are the least free state in the union by Cato consistently. So, I don't know. I think we got you beat, but maybe I'm wrong. So, all right. Let's see if I can keep going out here. John says, after the 2.9 trillion dole out, there's no doubt Joe Biden is a crony capitalist, just like his predecessors. That was like my point, right? And if you think a bailout's good, and if you think a bailout is a good idea, okay, fine. Hopefully Kevin's still watching. Then just write us all a check then. Why have to go through all the hoops? If you're saying the economy's shot, we got to just infuse it and we got to fix it, take it 2.9 trillion or whatever the amount of money there was, and then divide that by the number of households in America. I think it's like 150,000 or 150,000. I think it's 150 million households in America or whatever that number is. And then whatever that comes up with, whatever, $20,000, whatever it is, write everybody a check. Here's 20 grand. Go spend it. You know what most Americans would do? Spend it. Most would. Some wouldn't. Some would put it away. Some would invest it. The wealthy people would probably put it in whatever in their accounts or something. But most Americans would just spend it. If you really want to stimulate the economy, if that's what you want, give us money. We'll spend it. I would. You give me 20 grand, I'm buying stuff. Might be Bitcoin, but I'm buying stuff. That's all I'm saying. I will definitely be buying stuff. So yeah, I think he has. They all are. I haven't seen one who isn't. I mean, I can only say maybe on Jimmy Carter. And that's only a maybe because I haven't done my homework enough on him. So maybe Jimmy Carter, but again, that's a maybe. I could totally be off on that one. So I don't remember. I think my memory of him is the weakest. So he's the first president that I can remember my age. I don't remember. Like I know that's not true. I'm sorry. I do remember Ford. I remember Ford. Like I can remember seeing Ford. I remember seeing him still. I don't remember. I was alive during Nixon, and but I don't remember Nixon. I was too young. I don't remember Nixon at all. And I don't remember Johnson at all. But I do remember Ford a little bit and Carter. I remember that. So anyway, not you guys care, but maybe Carter. So Joel says crony capitalism is the usurpation of the Commerce Clause. Mark Levin's take on how to handle the Commerce Clause issue seems on point. Yeah, the Commerce Clause has definitely been used to really expand cronyism. I would agree with that. It's a good point. And I hardly ever bring up the Commerce Clause. Maybe I should bring it up more. So those who don't know, the Commerce Clause is basically in the Constitution where it says the United States government can regulate interstate commerce. So now anything that goes interstate, the federal government can step in and go, see, we can regulate this. So that's the whole idea of wire fraud. For those who don't know, wire fraud, while it is legally a crime, is not a crime. It's not a thing. That's just the way that's how the federal government just gets you on stuff. It's not a real crime. It's like saying, well, there's murder and there's knife murder. It's not, there's such thing as knife murder. It's murder or it's not, or it's murder one, or it's murder, or it's manslaughter. It's not murder or knife murder. This is fraud or wire fraud. It's fraud. They call it wire fraud so that the federal government can step and say, well, see, it went across the states and it's wire fraud. It's not a crime, but they use it the same way they use the Commerce Clause. If the federal government wants to step in on a case and take over and prosecute you, they'll just charge you with wire fraud. Now, how can they do that, Larry? They can literally do it on any crime. I'm not making this up. That uses a cell phone. Yes. If your crime uses a cell phone, the federal government can say, well, when you called that person or set this up or whatever you did, it's possible that that call bounced off a signal, a tower that was in another state. And if it did, it crossed state lines. See, you then use the signals and the airwaves. That's wire fraud. So now all of a sudden they can now prosecute you, and they can just prosecute you on that. So yes, the Commerce Clause and wire fraud are two things that the federal government uses to just regulate stuff and or punish you. So thank you. You know what? I may bring it up more often. Thank you, Joel. Paula, oh yes, I like Larry's long answers. Thank you, Paula. I'll try not to be so long. I'll try to keep under his 3-minute rule if I can. I'm glad you're watching, Kevin. Please keep watching. Stay with us. Joshua says, with all these paths to change things and better routes available, what is there to do with the growing power of financial institutions and government? A lot of times working together. It seems the more people push back, the more they catch on. The more government and big business push back. There must be a pinnacle that is tyranny. It's a great question. And I think the answer is, and if you notice most of my solutions that I put together, a lot of people don't like parts of them because they seem to give in to corporations here or there. I think there's some truth to that. I was talking about creating a cryptocurrency in New York State, but giving banks the ability to exchange it with a transaction fee. Well, wait a minute, Larry, you want to give banks more transaction fees? I don't want banks fighting me, and I want them doing what I want them to do, but I want them doing it because they want to voluntarily. And most of my plans that come up with these types of, when I come up with these types of plans, they're plans that get the banks and the big government to do what I want them to do voluntarily. And that's not easy. If they see the cash come in, they go, fine, we'll do it. Great. In reality, most of these people don't care what they do. They just want to make money. So if I give them ways of making money that help the people, they'll probably do it. Not because they want to help the people, but because it's how they make money. If they're going to make lots of money, then let's put it into people and give them opportunity to grow and become stronger, and also to make a lot of money. That's what I'm trying to achieve. I think the way I think I'm doing that, and look, I could be wrong. I just haven't seen anything else work without violence. And I'm trying to not go down the violence place. You're talking about the pinnacle of tyranny. I know what happens after that, Joshua. You and I both know that. And I don't want to go down that road. We are still paying an emotional and psychological price for our last civil war, which was 150 years ago now? 100 almost, right? Is that right? 160 years ago now? 150 years ago, 60 years. 160 years ago. We're still paying for that. We have another one. How long are we going to pay for that one? If you have a better idea, my ears are open. I'm trying to find ways to make things better, to move to, instead of trying to knock down the Goliath, I want to build up all the Davids, if that makes any sense. I'm trying to build up all the Davids, and then all the Davids can beat the Goliath on their own. Government doesn't have to get involved. Rick says, doing my part on YouTube. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. Yes, thank you so much. Absolutely. So, all right. Let's see. Well, Paula watched me on both. Thank you. I love that. Yes. Do you have any comment on the BLM founder and her purchasing of 4 new homes in the past year? You can't really call that Marxism, can you? It seems like this is grifting and race baiting. Actually, I haven't heard about this. But I'm not surprised to hear something like this, right? It's very common that once people find that they have resources, they spend them, is what people do. So I don't know this to be true. I haven't heard about this, to tell you the truth. But if it is true, I'm not surprised. There are many people who, care about a given philosophy until they don't. There's an old saying I've always talked about, and this is the idea. I shouldn't say it's an old saying. I say it often. It's not an old saying. I'm too young to have an old saying. I say it often. I say it's very common that the person on top of any ideology doesn't believe the ideology. They use the ideology to move forward. And the people underneath that person, they all believe in the ideology. That's why they're giving that person money and support, and then that person just makes money. I think it's a common problem. Whoever's at the tip top often doesn't believe the ideology. I don't doubt it's the same here. I don't doubt. Or maybe it's the old, ideology for you, not for me. Not for me. There we go. So, yes. Jeff says the only way to get Cuomo out of office is to vote Larry Sharpe in. I like that, Jeff. I like how you're thinking. I love it. Dogecoin, a real cryptocurrency. There we go. See? I like it. Logan, thank you. The universal settlement coin. Thank you, Tusk. Thank you for that. So that It is that coin specifically made so that it is a currency. So please check it out. The Universal Settlement Coin, Tusk, TUSC. Thank you very much, Logan. Exactly right. Yes, exactly. Dustin says I can spend my Doge at 1,500 different places. There we go. I like that. Yes. And there we go. Paula says, yeah, the Universal Settlement. Thank you so much, guys, for backing me up. I've forgotten what it was. Hopefully he's not mad at me. So yes, absolutely. So Sam says, in free markets, we disperse power across businesses. Yep. In our Constitution, we separate powers across branches and across the federal, state, and the people. Yep. Power grabs, cronyism create issues in all sectors. You on fire, Sam. Yes. 100% true. That's exactly what's happening. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, see if I can grab this. The Americoin, ACAB, American Coin Alternative Bit. Is that real? Are you teasing me, Dustin? I'm going to check that out now. I don't even know if that's real. That's pretty good. I like that. All right. Staffy Sharpe. Not happy about Staffy Sharpe. I'll get the. My husband, Sergeant Andrews, calling you Governor Sharpe. I like Governor Sharpe better. I thought it was Staff Sergeant's okay. Sergeant's nice. I like Sergeant. I was called Sergeant from a lot of my career. Corporal too, a lot of my career. That's fine. I love that. It's all good. Yes. So, Andrew says, I appreciate what you're doing. We need more liberty-minded people in government so we can limit or eliminate. Yes, absolutely. Yes, 100%. Obviously says, Larry, the fact that we don't have term limits in New York State is embarrassing. Yes, I say it constantly. So many states have term limits. We have it in our mayor here in New York City, not New York State. Yes, New York State is less free than the Congo. I'm not sure I'm gonna go that far, but I get your point. What a pathetic joke. It is pretty bad. I agree. John Morrissey says putting Chauvin in jail is not the solution. He was constantly allowed to continue being a police officer after every egregious favor he displayed on the job. Unless you change the system, we have accomplished nothing putting Chauvin away. I agree, which is why I haven't followed it that much. No matter what, the people who love George Floyd lost George Floyd. I'm not saying they should get anything. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that's not going to bring him back, right? The people who loved him have lost him. And of course, I know I lost my father when I was a kid. I deified my father when he died. He was perfect and did nothing wrong. It's not true. My father was far from perfect. But now I look back and I can say that. But when I was a kid, deified, perfect. He was the epitome of manhood. You know, that's it. But I think that his loved ones will deify him, even though he was a flawed human being. They will deify him too. But they did get money. Then they got like 20 some odd $million in a lawsuit. They already settled it already. So they got the cash already. So they got something, which doesn't replace George, but gives him something. Him going into jail isn't going to solve the problem. I completely agree. I think we have to change the system. I say it all the time. The system has to change. And we're looking at it already, which is good. You know, getting police officers to be more transparent so the bad ones get kicked out. I brought this up before. Some of you heard me say the story, right? People don't realize it. So you get a bad cop in a certain county. He's a bad cop. He does a bad thing, but because of things like unions and the fact that the state or the town has to pay if the guy makes a mistake, they cover it up to the best of their ability because it costs them money, and they ship him off. They can't fire him because that shows there's something wrong, and unions are fighting. So you get to just leave and quit, resign. He resigns. So he resigns in County A, then he goes to County B. What happens in County B? He's a bad cop. He does something bad. He's a bad cop. So now in County B it happens. The problem is most people don't know what happened. They just know that there's a bad cop in A and a bad cop in County B. Bad cops are everywhere. Nothing but bad cops. It's the same cop. He's making more good cops look bad because they don't get rid of him. So now, I'm not joking, sometimes it's 3-4 times. John's right. This has happened 3, 4, 5 times. Well, this guy might change states. Literally pack up and go to another state. And now he's a cop over there now. Well, he's a bad cop. He's screwed up again because he's a bad cop. Well, now, he's bad cops everywhere. This Chauvin guy, I mean, he had a rap sheet. He's a bad cop. They should have got rid of him a long time ago. He's making all the cops look bad. And here's the worst part. If they know he's going to keep staying a cop even though he's bad, why even step up? I'm not excusing those. I'm saying here's a real system. You have a system to where if I stand up and go, Chauvin, this guy's terrible, we got to get rid of him. And they go, stop, man. We can't do anything. He's just going to be a cop anyway. Stop. Shh. He's got a rap sheet. Don't worry about it. If everyone's telling you that, you got to quit yourself then, which many cops do. So it's a valid point. It's a valid point. I do think he's going away. I believe he's directly responsible for George Floyd's death. I think he murdered George Floyd. That's my opinion. But I don't say that often. I just go, death of George Floyd. He's on trial now. They'll come up with something, and I think he's going to get locked up. But you're right. That might make some people feel better, but it's not going to solve the problem. You see it already. They've already got another kid got shot. This one, I think, by mistake. But he just got shot. So yeah. So anyway, I appreciate that, John. I thank you for the comment. I do appreciate that. Draco's Hemp Emporium. I guess you want people to go there. Good for you. What are your thoughts on death penalty? People ask all the time about death penalty, and I'll tell you what I feel. I have two parts to death penalty. The first one is, do I think there is a possible time to where a community might think that the only way of dealing with an individual is to execute him, and there's no way around it? That's the only way. Yeah, I think it's possible a community might believe that, think that true, and it might be accurate. Maybe it is the right answer, or the only way to achieve justice because the person is so horrific or does such horrible crimes that the only way is, to do it is to kill a person. I could see that. So on a theoretical basis, am I 100% against the death penalty? No, not 100% theoretically. But do I trust government to do it right? Not at all. So therefore, I'm 100% against death penalty. I'm against the death penalty because I do not believe that government can do it right. I don't think government should have that power. I don't think government has shown so many times it will do it wrong. There was something 10 years ago, 20 years ago, whenever Illinois put a moratorium on the death penalty, they had checked their death row inmates, and they found some crazy number, like 20%. I may be off that number, but it was a high number like that. Like 20% of their inmates, people on death row, were actually proven innocent. It's some huge number. I don't remember what it was. Even if it was 5%. But it was higher than that. Even if it was only 5%. 1 in 20? Way too high. Maybe if we were 1 in like 10 million, I might be like, yeah, 1 in 10 million, maybe. And I still might say no. I don't trust government to kill its own citizens. I just don't. I don't. And yes, it costs someone to incarcerate people. So let's create a better environment to where people don't go to jail. Let's create a better environment to where when people go to jail, they have an actual chance of being rehabilitated. Let's do that. That's my answer to the death penalty. So I hope that answers your question. Yes. All right. Let's see if I can do this here. Sergeants are the backbone of the Marine Corps, though. Yes, indeed. Corporals and sergeants. Don't get rid of corporals. Corporals, too. Non-commissioned officers absolutely are. Yes, 100%. So it also says revoke qualified immunity to local, state, and federal law enforcement officers, and watch violations of our constitutional rights plummet. I agree, but not just cops. Also, government officials, judges, politicians, all of them. Remove qualified immunity. All of them. Not just cops. All of them. Yes, absolutely. Paul says black and brown people are still getting harassed and murdered by law enforcement. I guess once Sharpe gets sentenced, the press issuing, I don't know what that is. Everything is okay now. Oh, the press is going to act like everything's okay now. Maybe, but I don't think so. They're going to grab the next one. The press makes a lot of hay on this, right? They like something like this. They love long trials where they can talk about it all day and bring all the people on. Oh, they love that stuff. Absolutely. Jimmy says it. End qualified immunity, make it easy to get the bad cops out. I agree. Many libertarians are very much anti-cop. I know that. I'm not. I'm anti-bad cop. I'm 100%, and I'm also anti-system. And the system supports bad cops. That's absolutely true. I don't care whether you like cops, hate cops, whatever is your view on cops. You got to admit, it's a crappy system, and it encourages and helps out bad cops. And it should be supporting the good cops and getting rid of the bad cops, regardless of your view on police. Absolutely. I hope people are on the same page, or at least. Joe says some towns and cities are doing away with it, like New York City. Yes. But it's only taking away QI from cops. And now, thank you, Joe. Thank you. You read my mind. Yes. All levels of government, my friend. I'm with you, brother. Me and you. Yes, all of them. All of them. Absolutely. David says one is too many. It's a valid point, David. It's why I'm anti-death penalty. It's a valid point. It's why I'm anti-death penalty, because I don't see it working in practice at all. Right? If we're having a theoretical conversation again, we're in some university and a couple of PhDs are having some kind of theoretical conversation. Hey, you know what? We can talk about it. I'm fine. Put it into practice. I just can't see it. It doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't make things better. None of that. Yes. So Rose says, yes, I agree, especially judges. Yes. 100%. 100% yes. That's definitely a good first step without question. Definitely a good first step. Jericho said it actually costs more to house an inmate on death row than to house an inmate for life in prison. Oh, that's right. Thank you for that, Joe. That's brilliant. I appreciate that. You're right. That's right. It costs more because of all the appeals and everything we do for them. Yes. So it's actually cheaper to keep them just in prison forever. It's cheaper. But I'd rather have a system to where most people don't have to stay in jail for life, because we're able to get them out and to function back in society and to actually give back. Remember the idea that I talked about a couple weeks ago, maybe? The concept of justice that actually is justice, that people have to, if I do something wrong, right? Our idea of justice now is just punishment. So, some guy robs your house. He takes $2,000 worth of stuff and takes off, and he sells it all and whatever, buys booze or drugs or women or whatever he buys with it, whatever. It's all gone. They catch him. Well, your stuff's already gone. You ain't getting it back. So you lost $2,000. Gone. So now because he robbed you and you got your insurance, you get your insurance to pay for it. If you have homeowners or renters insurance, you have some. Now your rates go up. You got robbed twice. Not just that, they put him in jail. He does 3 years in jail, whatever, 5 years in jail. You pay for that. You got robbed 3 times. Now when he gets out, does he give you anything? No. He doesn't give you anything back. He doesn't work to get anything back for you. None at all, right? There's no remuneration whatsoever. And now he gets out and he's 3 years older, can't get a job because now he's got a criminal record. So now he goes on public assistance. You got robbed 4 times. This is justice. You got robbed 4 times because now you're paying for him on public assistance. I have an idea. If some guy robs you for whatever, $2,000, he goes to jail. In jail, we teach him a job or get him a degree or do something where he gets a chance of actually getting back out, because he still owes you $2,000 plus maybe some other fees that we would tack on depending upon whatever punishment he has. Did he trash your place too? Did he just take it and leave? Is there any trauma? Whatever. Insert thing here. We find an answer for that. Then he gets out with a job and he now has to pay you to say, I'm sorry, I robbed your house. I took your money. Here's some stuff back. And unless you don't want it, you can say no. If you don't want it, up to you, right? I know some people just want to forgive and forget, depending upon how it deals with you. No worries. Do that if you want to. But you have the option. Wouldn't that be actual justice? I like that better. Anyway, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm crazy. The Elastic Giraffe says, I'm missing Justin Amash in the House. His bill to end qualified immunity didn't stand a chance. Yes, but now that he's gone, they're still doing it, showing that our impact is still there. We are still doing it. CJ Davis says, I feel like corporations have their own form of qualified immunity that needs to go as well. I agree. Fines for things that may instead be prison if a person did it. I completely agree, CJ. And when I was running for governor, one of the things I brought up was for the environment. I talked about an environmental victims unit, an EVU, which is a specific unit that would be underneath probably DEP in New York State, and not have so many inspectors, but instead have EVU specialists who could actually pierce the corporate veil and find who actually made a decision that was wrong or bad and begin to punish individuals. I completely agree. The idea that, we're able to keep such a corporate veil over people that they just pay the fines and fees and keep moving on. We've got to change that. I completely agree. And the only way we do that is by having people who know how to get past that corporate veil, build precedent of breaking the corporate veil, and then that will happen more and more and more. That is a tough thing to do, and especially with corporations being people now, that kind of garbage. So we do have to worry about it. I agree. I'm with you, and I already have plans to work on that. We should be piercing the corporate veil far more. We need to hold people accountable. Absolutely. Yes. So Paulo says there used to be a huge backlash against rehabilitation of criminals, especially in Republican circles. I think it may be changing a bit. I hope it is. I hope it is. We need to, right? I don't want to be, I'll go back to what I talked about in the past, right? You can say, well, Larry, why do I want to teach this guy a skill? Why do I want to pay to teach this guy a skill? Because the other alternative is you pay for his lifestyle the rest of your life. That's your other option. The odds of him getting a job without it are slim to none. We see it within certain places, a recidivism rate of over 70%. So 3 in 4 go back to prison. Those who don't go back to prison stay on public assistance in some way, shape, or form. Many of them, not all, so obviously, not all, but huge chunks do. So your choice is pay to rehabilitate them or pay for their lifestyle for the rest of your life. Which one would you prefer? I'm going to go with get them out and get them a job and have them pay some taxes to help other people out. That's what I'm going to do. That's my view. But I understand the idea of eye for an eye. But you know what? Gandhi said it, an eye for an eye, and we all go blind. I would rather us not go blind. So that's all. Yes. So, all right. CJ says, example, if I poison someone for dumping chemicals in their water, jail, company, fine less than the money they save. I agree. That's my whole point, right? You want to pierce the corporate veil. It's just not easy to do. And we don't have very good precedents for it. So states have to start doing it more and more and kind of avoiding. The problem is once you go on when it comes to environmental specifically, that often comes in the federal guidelines, the Commerce Clause. Thank you for bringing that up earlier. The Commerce Clause, right? It goes of federal guidelines, which means the Superfund kicks in, federal guidelines kick in, and they actually want to protecting the corporation and the people. We want to ignore that and then pierce the corporate veil and do it at a state level. I think it can be done. It will take time and energy and precedent to like, oh, that's how it happens. That's how it works. So yes. So, all right. Brian says, our current idea of justice is punitive. Yep. Propose a restorative system of justice. Yes. I don't know how a uniform law could be written in your model. I think it could be. I mean, it's like writing a contract, right? You could do it. If someone does something wrong in a contract, there are often financial penalties, right? So you write it similar way. Say, for example, Brian, I break into your home when you're not there versus when you're there versus I physically, take your stuff off your body at gunpoint, right? It's a strong arm robbery. It's an arm robbery. What is it, right? What? And why would that matter? Because to be forward, there's a different level of trauma involved in each one. If I put a gun in your face and take your stuff, that's different than you came home and I robbed your stuff. Both are traumatic, but different levels. So there may be a different remuneration that would happen depending upon what it is. And I'm totally just making these ideas up just for sake of argument. But I think it could be done. Is it challenging? Yeah, it's super challenging. But challenging doesn't mean impossible. It means challenging. And if we want to do things that matter and make real change, we've got to do things that are challenging. So I think it can be done, but you're right. It's not easy. And the current group of people who write laws, it's not what they do. It would be a total change. And this is my point CJ's talking about. I think this stuff can be done, right? It's just people aren't used to it. There's no precedent really for it. Oh, not enough that anybody would care about. So we have to stop making the change. It's challenging, but once we start, and this is why I was in New York State. If we do it in New York State, the others will follow because they always do. New York State's the battleground state here. We change it in New York State, other states will follow. It's how it works. It really is. It's how it works. So, all right. I think that's, hold on. Jericho says, conservatives concerned about the death penalty is an awesome resource. I learned a ton of their work. Here we go, guys. A good resource for us all. Speaking of resources, I have one for you. It's the advocates.org. Yeah. If you want to, head on over there. Click this link right here. Go take the police accountability survey. Perfect timing. Come on. Look what's happening around this country. Take this survey now. Give me 5 minutes of your time. Take the survey, finish it, and then share it. Do that. Make my sponsors happy. Make me happy. Support this show by giving me 5 minutes and doing that and sharing it. Please do that. If you're lying, I don't feel like it. I did it already. Good. You can support me this way. $10 or $25 a month, patreon.com/sharpeway. Keep this show going. If you like what I'm doing, if you think it's bringing value, if you're sharing with people and we're having a conversation and it is valuable, then support so that I can get better equipment, pay my team more so they can do more work for me. They got to make money too. so they can go do their work too, and give me more and give me more stuff so we can work harder here and be a better show to the best of our ability. Patreon.com/Sharpeway, $10, $25 a month. If you're making big bucks, $100 a month if you're making the big dollars, but it's fine. And of course, always like, comment, share. I say it all the time because it matters. The algorithms kick in when you start clicking like, commenting, and sharing. So please do that to the best of your ability. I really appreciate it. It would help tremendously. So yes. All right, guys. Thank you for this evening. I appreciate all the time and energy you gave me today. I will see you all the rest of the week. Absolutely. All the rest of the week. I'm here every single day, 7 p.m. I will see you all tomorrow.